All right, let's continue with our presentation video lecture of chapter 5, focusing on classical India. Now we're in part 7. So we talked about the Mauryan dynasty, or the Mauryan Empire of India. And after its collapse, India kind of returns back to its normal state, which was decentralized. Lots of different kingdoms, lots of different rulers, not necessarily united. But then around 300 CE, we see a rise of a new empire called the Gupta Empire. And this is what we call the Indian classical golden age, right? The golden age of India. So we see a new central authority rise to power, and this is known as the Guptas. And basically, the Guptas, they establish centralized rule, but they're not really all that centralized, right? They still give a lot of power and independence to the local kings and princes and rulers of the many different provinces across India. And the Gupta Empire is much smaller in size and in territory than the Mauryan Empire before. Remember, the Mauryan Empire reached all the way into the southern half of India. But the Guptas is smaller, but again, it is the return to some type of centralized, organized territory. The Guptas, they continued establish the trade between China and the Mediterranean, right? They're part of the Silk Road. And again, they were decentralized. They didn't really have full control of their territory, even though, of course, they had an emperor. So when we look at the different regions of India, right, very multicultural, multi-ethnic, right, we tend to imagine that all the Indians are the same type of people, but the truth is that they're different. They might speak different language, they might practice different versions of Hinduism, they have different customs, and they are not culturally similar. They're very much culturally diverse. So to unify, a large region of India requires a lot of effort and, of course, a lot of violence. But eventually, the Guptas, once they control this large region of India, they are able to have peace and stability and wealth and trade. And because they have all this ability, they expand on the sciences and on the math, on mathematics. And this kind of leads to what we call the golden age. So one of the things, for example, that they improve on is in healthcare. They're one of the first people to start building hospitals, right? Where sick people go. They invent surgical procedures, right? Like how to fix when someone breaks a bone. Well, no one figured it out before the Guptas did. They use inoculations, which are basically vaccines, so that diseases don't, kill you immediately, but rather you build up a natural immune system, immunity against it. So the Guptas, again, very much advanced in science and math. They're the ones that develop our numeric system. It is the Guptas who create the decimal system based off the number 10, right? And this mathematical system, eventually, we're going to see in our next time period, is going to be adopted by Arabs. And those Arabs will use that numeric system. It will become known as the Arabic numerals, and eventually will make its way into Europe, and which is how we here in the West, right, are the numbers that we use nowadays, right? So from the Indians to the Arabs, from the Arabs to the Europeans, to us Westerners. Right, so here we see other achievements, right? They have literature, astronomy. The Guptas, right? They are not one of the first, but one of many who figured out, hey, the Earth is round. So this whole idea that people around Christopher Columbus's time didn't know that the Earth was round, that's nonsense. Most people knew, right? The Guptas definitely knew that the Earth was round. How big the Earth was, no one really knew for sure until much later on. But they definitely knew that the Earth was round. The Guptas, right, they also developed zero, which is something that the Mayans are going to do as well. They create the number pi, right? We all know this from our math classes. So the Guptas again very much advanced, and again these advancements are only made possible from um, peace and stability and economic prosperity. Here you see one of those universities called Nalanda University, again one of the older universities in the world, and it was first built by the Guptas, and it was a center of education. All right, so the Guptas, they are a mix of Hinduism and Buddhism. Basically, the Gupta rulers, they're going to support Hinduism, right? They realize that, India has all these different people, different backgrounds, different languages, different traditions, different ethnic groups, different everything, right? So very multicultural, multi-diverse, right? So they view that Hinduism and the caste system can be used because almost everyone is Hindu and almost everyone falls under the caste system. So they use Hinduism as a unifying cultural thing, right? And everyone in India will fall under the caste system, right, with the Hindus. So they promote Hinduism. They built monasteries, they built temples, right? They raise taxes to pay for these temples. And Hinduism once again becomes a super popular religion, right? Outgrowing the popularity of Buddhism, at least popularity in India. So we see again a lot of education, like the universities, a lot of art, a lot of literature, a lot of art in the sense of like statues and temples and stuff like that. So we mentioned that Buddhism had spread around the Silk Road, going into Central Asia and India, in China and Southeast Asia, right? They would build monasteries, right? This would be like monasteries, and a lot of these monasteries would be built along the actual Silk Road, right, as stopping points. So merchants who stop here would they'll donate money to the monasteries, and we see these monasteries get very big and fanciful and very artful with all the donations that they received. So Buddhism again becomes very popular, but it slowly becomes popular outside of India. The Guptas did not support Buddhism. The Mauryans, like Ashoka, he supported Buddhism, but the Guptas, they don't. Right? They support Hinduism, and Hinduism again becomes the main religion of India. Buddhism becomes less and less and less popular over time, even though it's spreading to other parts of the world. So the Guptas, as you can imagine, if you're decentralized, over time, those lords and princes and rulers that run the government for you, eventually they're going to say, I'm going to rule and be independent and not pay you taxes and not do anything for you. I'm going to be my own thing. So those local rulers and princes, slowly and surely, they start rising up, and the Guptas will become fragmented. Right, their empire will be fragmented, and then they get invaded. Well, let's talk about those invasions. The people that come invade, they're called the White Huns. Right, the White Huns, and here we see them. So the Huns come from here. Right, they're from Central Asia. Some of the Huns go into Persia and mess things up. Some of the Huns go into China and mess things up there, leading to the fall of the Han Dynasty. Right, and if you've ever seen the Disney movie, what's that girl's name? Mulan. If you've ever seen Mulan, that's what it deals with, those Huns coming in to mess up China. Then you have other Huns who moved into Eastern Europe, which pushed the Germanic tribes, right, into the Western Roman Empire and led to that collapse. And then some of the Huns that are nicknamed the White Huns, they move into India down here, right? And the Guptas, who are, over time, they start facing a lot of economic and political disunity. When these invaders come in, there's really not much that they can do about it. And a lot of the money that the Guptas had was from trade. But once the Huns came in, there's no more trade, because those trade lines are now, the merchants will be vulnerable. So we've seen this before. Foreign invaders, nomadic invaders coming in. The economy declines. The government loses its revenue, right? Loses its power to tax and spend. which means that they can't raise militaries to stop those invaders. The people get upset. They look for someone else to rule, and the local princes are like, "Hey, I'm here. I can take over. I can protect us. Don't pay taxes to the emperor. Pay taxes to the local prince. Pay taxes to me." And then the local princes are declaring their independence, and then the Gupta Empire is slowly but surely gone. And there you have it. Right? That is the Gupta Empire. Right? That is the second empire of classical India. See you next time.